Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Laugh and Learn about Human Design. And this time, the amazing Jennifer of My Holistic Self is talking about environments as it relates to human design. So, how are you doing?
Doing all right. And
Okay.
you?
I'm doing well. It is chilly to where I am these days, and that's okay. I'm inside. I am warm. I could put a hat on if I need to. So,
yeah, nice to have a blanket to curl up with.
It's very nice to have a blanket to. I almost said blankie. It's nice to have a blankie to pull up to.
Definitely.
Yes. So I want to thank everybody for being here, talking about human design. One of the things that I have been very aware of is there are a lot of places people can spend their time on YouTube. So thank you for watching us. Thank you for peeking in, leaving a comment, giving a thumbs up, using what you can, because we've been talking about human design for a while now in the Laugh and Learns. And these are, they can be, it's hard to take some of this because it's a new concept. So, but, and this one, environments, I was asking Jennifer backstage, I was like, this isn't like a baseline thing with human design. And in fact, I always, here's one of the, it's the definitive guide to human design. This book doesn't even have environments in it.
Yeah, I think there's one mention maybe of environments in the way that we're looking at them in there. And it's only just to mention that they're part of the notes. That's how we determine our environments. Okay. That's it. Other than that, they're not even.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because there are links below if you want to get your body graph. Your body graph looks something like this. And so environments aren't part of the nodes. This is good.
Yeah. So if you, if we were going to share a chart, let me see if I can I'll pull one up really quick. I'll pull up mine.
And while you do that, I want to say hello to Kaylee, Jonathan, and Russ Bob's Barbara. Thank you all for being here.
Hello. Okay, so can I share my screen? Let's see.
You should be able to. And I did forget an important thing. Of course, this is for entertainment purposes only. Do not make decisions based upon what we say. Seek professional assistance. Really? So, all right, I'm going to add that to the stage. There you go.
Okay. So when we're looking at a chart, and really what we're looking at here is just the body graph, right? So if I don't know if I zoom it in, how that shows up on the screen there. So what we've been talking about mostly is the aura types, right? What that shows up with, and that's our generator with manifesting generator, projector, manifester, reflector. And then we looked at the centers, right? And what each center represented. And then we looked at the authorities. And so each of these centers has an authority associated with it. And so we looked at those as well. And these are all very much kind of the grassroots in terms of understanding your human design. You want to know your aura type because you want to know your strategy for being in the world. And you want to know your authority because that's how you're meant to make decisions, right? As opposed to just going with what the mind does or the machinations of the mind. What we're getting into when we're looking at environments is if you look over here where it has kind of the design, and we talk about like brain, determination, cognition, environment, and environmental style. What we're looking at now is part of the personal health system in human design. And so we're getting into a lot of the kind of more finer nuances. And so these are this section where we have these arrows and the little circles and triangles. We're looking at tone and color and bass and all of those kinds of.
So that's the side.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see my mouse as I'm moving over it.
Okay. Yes, we can now.
But that's what we're looking at. And so, we're getting into, like, as you said, much more in depth in terms of what we're diving into at this point. Okay. And so, when we look at the environment piece, we're getting in over here. And so it's this bottom left arrow. And as you can see, when I hover over it, the external theme is observer. So we see that over here. And then if I hover over that 4, it's a tone 4, which is inner vision. And then I get my color 3 for me, which is the environment's kitchens. Okay. And so this is what we're looking at in terms of what our environment is. But if you pull up your body graph and all, it'll write it out for you, which makes it really, really nice.
Good. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, because being able to, know exactly where you're looking in the chart and all of that can be quite complicated at times.
Well, and this is something that people can go to your website. They can get a body graph done. They can, and do they save it there, and then they can look at it again so that the float over it pops up?
It's both wonderful and a little bit complicated at the moment. So there was the program that I used to put it into my website. There's been some really cool upgrades with it, but the way that it allows now for the PDF download is different, and I have to figure out what shifted in that. So you'll be able to download your body graph, and you'll be able to download the basic information, but that beautiful write-up that you have there, Gerald, with all the details printed out, it's not giving me. So I have to go into the settings and figure out what happened in order for y'all to be able to print that out. But now there's a whole bunch of other stuff on the website, which actually, if I can digress for a moment, I'll actually show you all just so that you can see, because there's been quite a bit of change.
And while you do that, I want to say hello to Russ Bob's Barbara, Lisa P73, Jules Niner, Debbie at 3 Shifting Veils, YT Social, Hypnicity, and Eva J's Mystical Messages. It's good to see everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Do give a thumbs up. So it's great to see so many people here.
Most definitely. Okay, so we're going to use the passenger consciousness one for today.
You need to share your screen. There we go. Okay, there we go.
So it's passengerconsciousness.ca. And if you just go to that website, you're going to see on there, get your free chart. Okay, so you can just click on that, and it's going to pull up the chart entry information again, which is new. It's the same but different, and I'll show you why. So here you get to actually select your chart type, and so you can get the traditional one. You can get the mandala. You can put in 2 different people to get a relationship chart.
Ooh.
You can see a cycle chart, which shows about return. You can look at the transit and how it is associated with you in this moment, and you can pull up some astrology stuff. So there's a whole lot of new information on here that you can get. So if we just go to the traditional one, and I'm just going to say, right, and my place of birth is, we'll just stick with Ottawa because that's close here. And there's a lot of Ottawas. And let's say Jane was born on January 1st, 1980 at 12:30 p.m. Okay, and so you would just put in that information and view your chart. Okay, and so it'll pull up the chart, and then it will pull up all of the information. And so, Gerald, where yours had all of the information just written there, Now you have to actually go over the 3 dots and it'll pull it up.
Okay.
Okay. And you'll get to read about it. And then you can, go through that way and see what each thing is. And so even here, you look at it environments, right? So this one is mountains, and you can pull it up and get a little kind of synopsis about what that means. And as is the case from before, you can just scroll over each of the centers, and it's going to give you a bit of information about what that center means for you, depending on how it's defined, if it's defined or not. And then at the bottom is still the chart options, of extra kind of like little readings that you can do. If you come back up here and you go create new chart, you don't have to even change your information. You can just go, I want to see what my astrology chart looks like.
Got it.
And view it. And it pulls it up. Okay. And then it talks about, you get to see what each house looks like. So the planet, the house, the sign, and just get a little bit of a write-up about what that means for you.
That's really good, because a lot of times something like this, well, for me, it can be a bit overwhelming. It's like, how am I going to remember this stuff?
Yeah.
And having those pop-ups really does help.
It's so good to have, and it's little snippets of information. So it's meant to not overwhelm, but just to give some insight. Right. To
help encourage people get more information later if they need it.
Exactly. So, and you can come back to it, right? And pull it up again and all of that. Make notes about it, which I find to be really helpful.
That's nice.
So here's the transit. So what's really cool about this is, on Twilio Talk every week, I give the transit and kind of how it's showing up. But what we're talking about when I do that is the sun transit. And so it's just one aspect. Now, the sun is like 70% of the neutrinos that are coming through, which you guys can watch some of the old shows to figure out what all that means. But this allows you to actually say, oh, you know what? Now I'm actually in, San Diego. And that's where I'm living at the moment. And I want to know what's going on for me today. Right. And so I'm going to go ahead and put that information in. And right now for me, well, it won't be this time because the time zone is different there, but that's what time it is for me at the moment. And it will pull up the transit chart for you. And so you can see here's the personal chart. Here's the transit chart for that time and location. And then this is what the composite chart will look like. And so you get to see kind of what's activated for you in that place at that time. Okay.
And because transits tend to be location based as well as astrologically based, etc.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you think about astrology in general, right? The placement matters with where you're located. And it's just a matter of, where the placements are based on where you are around the globe, right? And so we say, a lot of times they use like UTC time. I'm just going to stop sharing here. They'll use UTC time, and that's just kind of universal so that we can kind of change where it is based on whatever's going on for us. Whereas this allows you to just go right in and go, this is for me right here, right now, what's going on. And we don't have to worry as much about, am I getting it right? And is this really yesterday? Or am I getting it in somebody else's time zone?
Well, I really encourage everybody to, when you have a few minutes, to go and explore it. As I said, the links are in the descriptions below. So you can access that, bookmark it, so you can go back to it. That's very helpful, and that could be fun. So, and Eva said yes, we use UTC time with ham radio, so that would be useful. Yes, yes. And Spiritual Rain is here, Hershey is here, so this is wonderful. So we've covered a lot of really wonderful information about human design, and environments came up. And so can you tell me why knowing about environments is important?
Yeah. So environment in our personal health system with human design is exactly that. It is the environment in which we are most aligned and in which we are going to thrive. And so if we're not in that environment, all the other stuff becomes really hard, right? Ra talks about, so Ra Uru, who channeled human design with the voice, explains that if we're not in a correct environment for us, then following our strategy and authority becomes very difficult. Doing the deconditioning is also very difficult. And so it is important to step into, okay, what is my environment? Where is it that I am going to thrive? What does that look like for me?
Yes.
And some of the environments are actually like location based, and some of them are what can happen within that environment. Okay. And so we look at that and go, all right, what, yeah, so we can take a look at what all of the different environments are and go from there.
Let's do that. And so I was doing a little bit of research, and the definition that I have: your environment is the place or idea that supports you in expressing yourself and feeling regulated. So for those of you who've watched many of these before, expression and being regulated are important aspects of this. And when we are aligned with our natural way of expression, things flow. Things flow a little easier. So
exactly. Exactly. I see Y2 Social has a question there about the different charts. So originally I had only had the HD chart up there, and then I had the transit chart on a different page with the calendar where I teach you how to read the human design calendar. And I had contemplated whether or not I wanted to, use all of the different charts or not. And really what came and the reason why the decision was made is that everybody's at a different place in their journey, and people like different things. And so depending on what you resonate with, I wanted to just make sure that there was something there for everybody. And so you can just use the one if that's what aligns for you. If, you've been doing, your own kind of getting to know yourself and the deconditioning process with human design, and then you want to step into, okay, what does this look like with the transits? I'm going on vacation and I want to know what it's going to be like for me when I'm there. All of those kinds of things. It just gives you an opportunity to explore more. We do want to be really mindful that we don't want the mind to get carried away with all of it, because there's so much information, and it's really easy for the mind to go, nom, 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 nom. I want more information. That being said, depending on your design, that might be really good for you. And so the idea behind having all of the different bits and pieces in there is just so that anybody can kind of step in and go, you know what, this is what resonates for me today. This is what I want to, to explore. Yes. Nom, 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 just like Cookie Monster.
So a good starting point would be the basic chart. Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm seeing that Spiritual Rain said you're hitting a button with me on this subject. I was meant to see this live stream. My current environment is not helping me thrive, and I've been trying to figure out how to improve it. Very good.
Things happen as they're meant to. That is for sure.
And Jules Niner said, I subscribe to understand this all more. And,
perfect.
The design date, because your human design is it 8 weeks or 6 weeks?
It's 80 days.
80 days before your actual birth. So that's what the design
80 degrees. So about
80 degrees. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it says the design, design date, don't panic. knows what
Yeah.
he's
So you know how when we were talking about the crystals, like we had the show
Mhm.
last time, and we were talking about the different crystals. When we talk about that, so the magnetic monopole is that higher self piece.
Mhm.
Hello. The design crystal, according to human design, it becomes a part of our identity that 80 degrees before our birth. That's kind of when the design crystal sets in and
Mhm.
takes hold. And so it's the unconscious or subconscious part of our design. And then the personality crystal comes in at the moment of our birth. And so that's why we have those two sides,
Mhm.
because we've got those two crystals that are playing a role in our identity.
I love it. I love it. So this is important so that we can let's see, what was the word you said? We can decondition,
Mhm.
we can, I would say, grow and evolve. Um so the floor is yours if you want to talk about environments. And well,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a question. How many environments are there?
Yeah, but I'm going to get into the environments in a minute. There's 6, 12, 6 to 12. I'll explain that in a minute. Um, but I want to step back first because this idea of deconditioning and helping us evolve, I think it's really, really important. And some people in the human design world get very adamant in, this is your design, this is how you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is a beauty in knowing and understanding your design. I don't think that it should ever become something that we define ourselves by, in the sense that we always have an opportunity to grow and we always have an opportunity to change. And so we look at it and go, okay, this is a blueprint. What I choose to do with this blueprint is up to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so if we look at it and go, okay, well, my design says this about myself, so this is the parameters that I'm now choosing to live by, that's not going to help us.
Nope.
But if we look at it and go, wow, that explains so much about what I already knew about myself, and we allow that to give us permission to be who we already knew we were,
Mhm.
that's a beautiful thing.
I agree. I personally, I get frustrated when people say, oh, I'm an Aquarius, that's the way I always am. Well, that's an excuse, because you may be that way naturally. You don't have to act upon it all the time. And again, for entertainment purposes only, don't come for me, YouTube. So but yeah, it's just a way to really understand how we are and how we naturally
Exactly.
interact with the world. One is not better than the other. They just are.
Yes, and there isn't one way that's better. There's not one, as we get into this, environment that's better. There's not one design that's better, right? It really is about allowing ourselves to come home to ourselves, to understand and accept and love ourselves for all that we are. That, if you can use it for that, that is a beautiful thing. And that's what I'm hoping that I'm able to hold space for and sharing about all of this.
Yes. Yes. Hello, Annie Bear. Thank you for being here. It's great to see you.
Hello.
So
Okay,
we said
so
there are 6 or
yes.
12
So
environments.
I say 12 only because each one has like a subtype, like two, it splits. So with all of the personal health system, when we get into it, there are different aspects. So you know how I showed the chart and there's the 4 different arrows?
Mm-hmm.
So we have like our determination, our environment, our perspective, and our motivation, right? And now, do you remember when we did the work about the I Ching and I was explaining about the hexagram?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we're getting back into, let me see if I have that handy really quick. It should be right here in this handy dandy little notebook that I have. Yeah.
Eva J's Mystical Messages says, it feels rather like a puzzle, different pieces that are put together in aspects of ourselves and enhance our lives.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
So with the I Ching, right, we have the the different elements. And then when they get put together, we get all of the hexagrams. And so there's 64 hexagrams throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Each one is always made up of 6 lines, right? Mm-hmm. And so, when we're looking at the gates, when we're looking at the transits and all of that, this is why we have line days. There's 6 lines.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is broken up into that 6.
Sure. Okay.
So there's 6 of all of these different things in that sense, because they're all tied to one of the lines of the hexagram.
Sure. Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does. Millie, it's good to see you safe driving.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, good. Ooh, I'm not typing it in.
Yeah. And so with each one, so line 1, if you've got a line 1, it's caves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Line 2 is markets.
Uh-huh.
Line 3 is kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
Line 4 is mountains. Line 5 is valleys. And line 6 is shores. So you will have one of those 6 in your chart.
Okay. So caves, markets. I'm typing this in.
Yeah. So caves, markets, and kitchens. Mountains, valleys, and shores. And we'll dive into each of them a little bit too. Okay. So when we're looking at environments, we are really looking at the environment in which we are all each uniquely designed to live and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so our ideal environment is determined on the body graph, like I showed you with that bottom left arrow under the color. And so, again, you guys don't have to worry about that. You don't have to remember that. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is knowing our environment, because our environment helps us to nourish ourselves. Okay. And it helps us to nourish ourselves from the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're doing all of this work to decondition, to understand ourselves, to come home to ourselves. And that's a really hard thing to do when the environment, that which is around us, isn't aligned with us being that, which we are. Mm-hmm. So we talk about, building a healthier aura, really kind of stepping into that energy, healing issues. How do we remove resistance, right? Like what we need to generally feel better and to gain a clearer vision, to understand things better, to really honor our authority, to shut down, the conditioned mind. All of that can be helped or hindered depending on the environment.
Sure.
That we're in.
Sure. I agree, Annie Bear. I like all of these places too.
I do too. I do too. I thought for sure my environment was going to be caves. It's kitchens. And it's really interesting because my office, and you guys don't get to see a whole lot of it. It looks like a gypsy wagon. That's kind of my thing. But it feels very cave-like. It feels very like I'm connected, I'm secure, a lot of those attributes of the cave. But what's interesting is being kitchens, it's also where I can alchemize things. And that's what's really important for me in order to thrive. So I like this cave environment, but I also need the kitchens, right? So this is the piece where we look at it and go, okay, it's the energy around the environment that's what's really important. And so, like Lindsay, you're saying, I'm a shores girl. I love the ocean. Don't get me wrong. And I always want to live by water. But it's about, what's showing up for me in terms of what's important, right? Yes. So, if we dive into each of these, there's different, I just want to be mindful of this too, because there's different interpretations around what each of these environments mean and to what extent we need to be literal about the environments.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as is the case with all things, I always say the mantra with human design, and that Ra always talks about, is that it's called the human design experiment for a reason.
Ah, okay.
We're meant to play with it. We're meant to experiment with it. We're meant to see what resonates, release what doesn't, and allow ourselves to really just explore these different things, right? So if we say, okay, this is your environment, and you go, well, that doesn't resonate, I challenge you to just take a step back and figure out why. What's going on there? What feels like it doesn't resonate? What's coming up for you? Just to notice that, because I think that, again, the mind will immediately jump in and try to figure it all out. And it doesn't always help us.
No.
In that way.
So these environments are places that line up with us, and where we feel safe in expressing ourselves, and we feel regulated. I'm going to do a bad correlation.
Okay.
The Myers-Briggs, hashtag not endorsed, hashtag not an expert, but the idea of introvert and extrovert, where someone gets their energy or recharges themselves. Introverts, they go inward to get their recharge. Extroverts go outside of themselves. Does that relate to any of this at all, in the sense of, okay.
It can. So as we dive deeper, I'll explain what that looks like.
Okay.
So a few key things too. So because these are associated with our nodes, we want to look at it and recognize too that, South Node, when we're breaking it down, and I don't know, however many people are familiar with the astrology side of this and all of that, but South Node is our past direction and North Node is our future direction.
Okay.
Right. And so at about, they say midlife, some say Saturn return, some say our Uranus opposition. But what happens is at some point around 38 to 43-ish years old, and that's a flexible parameter, we go through this process of letting go what doesn't serve us anymore. Right? There's these shifts that begin to happen. And this is the time where we're shifting from that South Node energy to that North Node energy. And so it's not to say that our environment isn't important prior to that, but it becomes very, very important as we move forward.
Okay.
And so, when we think about it, if our North Node, being this future direction, is about what we think about the world on our personality side, and on our design side, it's about our relationship. It helps frame the relationship that we have with the environment and the people in it.
Okay.
You can understand now with that energy, like how we feel about the world and how we relate to our environment. Environment is significantly important at that point in time. Whereas with the South Node, it's about moving beyond. So that doesn't matter as much. Right. So that's just as a note as to, how to kind of navigate that. Like as we get older, our environment just becomes that much more important.
Right.
And if we're, depending on how open our chart is, somebody who only has 2 defined centers or a reflector who has no defined centers, right? We're so influenced and conditioned by the environment. So the environment has significant impact on how we feel and what's going on for us.
Yeah. Hi, Denise Fletcher Tarot. And Rain said, my environment is caves where I can choose who I'm around, where I have some control over this. So it's so important to me trying to find my cave again.
And how can you create that cave for yourself? Right? Because the other part of this is, some of these are, what they call like hardscapes, and some are called landscapes, right? So again, with the hexagram, always it's broken up in the first 3 and then the second 3.
And then the second 3.
Right? So numbers 1 through 3 are considered hardscapes. They're more set and they're more specific in their detail. Whereas the landscapes 4 through 6 are much more concepts of places. Okay. And they're more open to interpretation, if you will.
Yeah.
I agree. As I age, my environment has become very important to me. Yeah. I almost feel like I can't compromise it anymore. Yeah, I feel you.
Jules Niner asks, can you be more than one of the places?
No. So we are one of the places. Now, what you're getting into here could be transference, which is a whole other thing that we get into with human design, where the 1 and the 4, the 2 and the 5, the 3 and the 6, and there's transference between. And so we often will step into that energy. And if we are in a transference place, we actually recognize that what's being pulled from us is not aligned. But that's a whole other probably episode in and of itself if we're going to dive into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, okay. Shall we go through each of those? Just give some information because we're just over a half an hour.
Holy moly. Time is flying.
I know.
Okay. So, you know how I talked about each one has 2 parts to it. So this is about the arrow. If the arrow in that corner is left facing, it's more of observed. Whereas if it's right facing, it's more observer energy. Okay. So what ends up happening is we can break each one of these down into 2. Okay. So I guess we can start with number 1 and work our way.
Let's do it.
And so if we go with caves, because caves is number 1, on the observed side, it's selective. Whereas on the observer side, it's blending. So what does that mean? So caves in general is about being safe and secure. All right. So as a cave person, if you are a cave person, you need to feel that you have control over your environment and that you have, as who was it that just shared that? Sorry, I know we just shared it. I'm just not catching everybody's names as we go through.
Rain.
And control over who comes and goes from your environment. Right? Exactly. Yeah. Spiritual rain. Exactly. What you were saying is so bang on. And so when we're in selective, this is very private. And somebody with selective caves needs a lot of alone time. Okay. Oftentimes we talk about, the energies that we have in, like wherever it is that you work, wherever it is that you sleep, it's really important that you say only have one door, one access point into those spaces.
Okay.
Right. You want to situate yourself in such a way that you don't sit with your back to the door or your back to an open space. You're going to feel a lot more secure if you're in and able to kind of see what's going on around you within your environment. If you're blending, so the observer side of it, then you might actually like more actual cave-like places, places that can be busy and active, but very, very safe and concealed. And so, think about, like curtains that block out the light, keeping low light as opposed to really bright lights, and just kind of holding space for enjoying that time alone. Right. Sometimes people with caves blending actually do really well living on their own or with just one other person, because it's easier for them to just kind of blend in, if that makes sense. Right. They can just kind of become one with the environment. Whereas when there's a whole lot of people or a whole lot of things going on, there's a lot of getting pulled out.
Yes.
Right.
I think one of the things that you had said is, now it's completely gone. No, it was because you're actually talking about okay, the physical environment, as well as what that physical environment gives you in the sense of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really valuable thing to remember, is because, some people, I love the idea of in a cave, the low lighting makes somebody feel better. I want to encourage people, as they continue to listen to this first part of human design environments, because there will have to be a part two, because not only is, it is about that sense of how does that feel, but then how does it give you the feeling to support that? Is that safe to say?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really safe to say. We look at all of these different environments, and again, how I had said, some are landscapes and some are hardscapes, right? And so some of them really do have very specific things. Like I said, hardscapes are more, hard, solid, right? They're more specific. Whereas landscapes are more being able to kind of just the concept of it. And so with caves, it is a hardscape, right? So it is very much about the actual environment, right, that you're in. And so the next one is markets.
And Lindsay said, is markets the most common? A lot of them around Lindsay.
Maybe, I don't know. So Jovian Archive is a great site with all of the statistics about, what percentage of the population is this, that, or the other, but they don't get into the personal health system. So I think the ones that they have on their website is the aura type, the profiles. I believe they have definitions on there as well, definitely authorities, and they probably have the incarnation crosses, if I remember correctly. But I don't think they get into the statistics around the personal health system as much.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the actual stats on that are.
So it's something that people can go and explore. Okay, so markets.
Yeah. Okay. So markets. So with markets, if that's your place, and Lindsay, since you got a lot of people around you with that one, here you go. You need to be in a place that's busy. So people who are markets, whether they're observed or observer, internal or external is the way that breaks down. They have to be where there's a lot of activity and productivity. And so these people are going to do well in any type of market, right? Any place where there's a busyness, where there's a hum of energy. And so, we talk about, what does the market look like? Okay, well, there's business, there's money making, there's trading, there's finding new and creative and inspiring things and ways to do things and all of that. There's a lot more in terms of needing other people around, community sharing, bouncing ideas, all that kind of stuff, right? But that's the idea behind markets, is that unlike caves where they're okay on their own, markets needs activity. They need other people. And so if they're internal, this is about bringing the buzzing to you, right? So they need to be observed. They need to be able to bring people and community to them. So for kids who have internal markets, having lots of play dates where people come over to the house and things like that, right? These people may run workshops, they might run retreats from their space, right? So doing even online stuff and things like that are great ways to navigate that, because you're able to bring people to you. Right? Whereas external markets is the opposite, right? It's going out to see others. There's a need for observing, and so they need to see all these different things. And so they're going to thrive more when they're in the middle of the hustle and the bustle and the action.
Yeah. And
right?
Lindsay's like, my kids were so social and busy.
Yeah. Not surprising.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's where they're going to thrive. And
Mhm.
so if they're external, getting them out to activities, getting them out to big play dates, parks, whatever it is, so that they can be in the middle of the buzz.
Mhm.
Right. And so, what comes to mind when I think about this is like the stock market floor, right? All the buzzing and the people and the this and the that and the trade and the things that are happening, right? These people are more likely to have like a shop front or a market stall where they're out in the markets and in the community.
Sure.
Right. So, just notice if your kids are internal or external, because that's going to help you to help them be able to have the environment that they need to be seen or to see kind of what's happening around them.
So, Lindsay has asked, and I'm glad Lindsay has asked this because how do you find out the internal versus external? I know you just covered this, but it's a lot of information.
Well, and now that you're saying that, I don't know. Give me just a second here. Go back over, because I think that the chart that I gave you gives you just the basic.
Okay.
So it doesn't get into the next line of it. So it just says what the main one is. It doesn't get into the lines. So if you go, let's see. If I open, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to direct you guys now. You can go to this site for free and get just your chart if you want to end up paying for the, like you can pay even just for the month or something like that, and it'll help you to navigate, and you can put in more charts. So let me just present it again.
Debbie said, I was listening while cooking. Do we use our married name or our birth name or a name that you make up? It's the name isn't related to this.
Yeah, the name doesn't matter. But your birth date and time and location definitely matter. Okay, so here we go.
You can be whoever you want.
Yeah, you can, be whatever. So as you can see here, I'm on geneticmatrix.com.
This is no, you're not. This is the graph.
The body graph, yeah. It's on geneticmatrix.com.
Okay,
I guess you can't see, sorry, you can't see the up part here. Genetic Matrix.
There it is. Okay.
Okay, so geneticmatrix.com. And again, like I have the professional payment one that you can get, but you can just go on and get your body graph for free here. And what they do, if you go into the write-up part of it, so environments, you can see mine is kitchens, dry, right? So it will give you that nuanced extra piece. Okay.
Nice.
So again, geneticmatrix.com, and you can just sign up there. And I believe that you can pull your own chart for free. Jovian probably does it too. There's a lot of sites out there that you can use. You can use mybodygraph.com, geneticmatrix.com, the Jovian archives. There's also Neutrino, which is a really great program that you can get. It's an app you can get on your phone that gives a lot of information. The only thing with Neutrino that I find is anybody can kind of put the information in. So you want to make sure that you just kind of double check and make sure it resonates and all that kind of stuff.
And Eva said, if my husband's birth time isn't on his certificate, what can I put to do his chart?
Okay, so this is where, when I do readings for people who don't know their birth time, there is on Genetic Matrix, and again, I might as well just keep my chart. I
was just like, go ahead.
I'm just going to keep it shared for now.
No, this is perfect because we have a lot of good questions, and
they're great questions.
It feels really good because it's telling me that there's a desire to have an understanding and application for this. So this is great.
Definitely. So once you put in, so you'd have to go to create a chart, and then you're going to put in all the birth information, and then it will pull up this chart for you. Okay. Once you're in, again, we're just using tropical. You can choose to use a different one if you want to. I know for me, the sidereal, when it comes to astrology, really resonates, but tropical and human design resonates a whole lot more for me. So do what resonates for you. Then you're going to go foundation and transit, foundation core, and then all the way over here where it says quantum.
Slide over.
Oh, you can't
so
see
we
it?
Can see. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. When I'm on this screen, I can't see what you guys are seeing.
I understand.
So you click on that, and you can type it in just for birth time range, or if you feel like you just want to scroll and you're like, I don't remember what it is she said. Oh, birth time range. That makes sense. And then what it's going to do is it's going to actually show you what it looks like at different times throughout the day. Okay. Now, for me, the chart doesn't really change a whole lot throughout the day. For pretty much the entire day, I am going to be a 1-3 splenic projector. It's only at the very end of the day that it switches over to a 1-4.
Mm-hmm.
There are some charts that you go in and everything is different throughout the day.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, just, pay attention to it. Then the main things that you want to look for to start is just the aura type. Is the aura type different throughout the day, or is it the same?
Mm-hmm.
If it's different throughout the day, then you're going to be able to decide, okay, which aura type really resonates for me. Mm-hmm. And then that you can start to limit it that way. The next thing that I look at is the profile, right? Mm-hmm. So we haven't really done profile, which maybe that's another show we need to do at some point in the near future. Okay. But what happens is with the profile, this is kind of how we live out our incarnation cross, right? So our profile is about how we show up in the world. And so as this changes, these numbers each represent an aspect of that. So the 1 line is the investigator, the 3 line is the martyr. So I'm an investigating martyr. What that means is that I like to deep dive into things, and I really need to have a good understanding of it before I feel comfortable sharing it. Mm-hmm. But I also need to experiment with it. That 3rd line is about experimentation. It's about bumping into things. It's about making mistakes and learning from them. And so this really resonates for me as a 1-3. And of course it does, because I really don't have another option here. But those may change, right, throughout the day.
Right.
And so you want to kind of read about each one of those profile lines that show up throughout the day to see, okay, which ones really resonate or not.
Yes.
And so, when I say like about doing a reading, that's what we do. So I'll sit with somebody who doesn't necessarily know their birth time, and we go through it and kind of go, okay, this is this aura type. This is that aura type.
Sure.
What resonates for you? Okay, this is what this profile line looks like. This is how they show up. This is how this one does. This is how this one does. And then people can go, you know what, that number right there, that one really resonates for me. And we kind of narrow it down that way.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And Kaylee said 12 hours made a difference.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's very true. And so when we're able to kind of narrow it down in that way, again, we're looking at what feels correct, right? So again, we're honing in on, how we show up and what we're kind of, used to seeing in our experience and all of that kind of stuff. And you go, yeah, you know what, as much as I maybe don't want to admit it, that's a pattern in my life. I get it.
Yes. Oh, yes. So we've got about 5 minutes left.
Holy moly. We got through just a couple environments. We're going to be doing another environment show, guys.
At least one. So tell us, let's finish up with things about markets. You said that, there's a lot of activity, there's a hum of energy. And then you talked about, sometimes was it internal markets to where you bring the activity to, or external where you go into the activity?
Yes.
Okay. What else do you want to share with those, with the markets, if there is anything?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing when we're looking at markets is needing that energy, right? So you were talking about like introvert versus extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
Caves people, more introverted. Markets people,
right.
more extroverted.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. And then there's going to be, other ones where it's a combination, right, of the two. But even in markets, this idea of, being observed, of bringing people to you, there's a bit more control that you have there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who am I going to let in to see me? How am I going to do that? What kind of environment, like what kind of people do I want in my environment?
Yes.
Versus the external, which is going out and observing, right? That's going to be a lot more open to the possibilities of different things and all of that, because those people need to observe what's going on around them and all of the different things. There's less maybe control in the sense of the environment, that how the market shows up, if that makes sense.
Yes. Oh, it does. And I think, Annie Bear has said, it's just like going, I love to give and then dash back into my cave.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. And I think, and again, this is really why I'm excited to share this information, is understanding our natural affinities and our natural approaches to things, and leaning into those really makes me feel more engaged.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to force me to do something, I can set things up differently to help me do the things that I may not want to do. If I've created, if I'm aware of my environment and my aura type and the different aspects of it, it can be very, very helpful. So, and yes, it is a lot of information, Jules Niner. You are absolutely right. So.
Yes. Yeah. And again, we're looking at, environments, which is one kind of nuance. So if you're new to this, go back, watch the playlists, explore the aura types, explore, even if you just watch the ones that resonate for you, right? You say, okay, well, I'm generator, manifesting generator, and I'm sacral, so pure, so authority, right? So you're going to want to go and definitely watch those particular videos and just see how that resonates for you, and all of that. So.
Yeah. And it feels very good. I agree with you. It feels good to honor that. It also feels good when I'm honoring that when I am trying to learn something new, instead of I'm fighting it.
Yeah.
Annie, the playlist is linked in the description, and it's
so either of our YouTube channels.
Yep.
You'll be able to find the playlist. It's also on the website that I brought you guys to.
Yes.
If you scroll down, the videos are all there too.
Yes, and
not scroll down. I think it's under resources, but all the videos are there.
Yeah, it's a long playlist, but it's like this is one of the important things. This is a lot of information to take in.
Yeah.
Small bits are really helpful. And then when you go back and watch it, you can leave comments, and you can also watch it for a little bit. And then typically YouTube will remember how far you've gotten, and it will pick you up from there. So, Jennifer, at My Holistic Self and Holistic Self Counseling, what do you have coming up on your channel?
Well, at 5:00 today, so Eastern time. So that is in 2 hours from now. We have Twillo Talk. So Tanis and I co-host Twillo Talk, and we have Simon Hinton on with us today.
Very nice.
And he's going to talk about the work that he does, and it's really absolutely wonderful and fascinating. So I encourage you all to join if you can, to tap in and hear a bit about that. And what else do I have coming up? We just finished our support group with Beyond Being Human. We do that once a month. I do believe that they're having another one this coming Saturday or Sunday. Go to beyondbeinghuman.org/support-groups. You'll get to see what those are. So anybody on this journey, if you want to check in, there's a couple different groups that are hosted throughout the month. And it's always good to have support. Right. So being a part of that has been a great experience. And yeah. And then I think I've got another couple things coming up, but they're down the road. So like and subscribe, and you'll get to see all of what that is.
I mean, and do that. Definitely check to make sure that you are subscribed. Ring the bell to be notified. Sometimes YouTube will remove subscriptions because I have no idea. So
lovely YouTube.
And
yeah.
Hey, Mark. Good to
see
you.
Hey, Mark. I just want to go back for a minute. I know we're over time, if it's okay, though, because Spiritual Rain, you had asked a question, and I don't want to leave it there.
This one?
Yeah, exactly. I want to honor my cave-likeness, but I'm leery of disappointing others. But that's my issue, and I have to confront it. Yeah, I think it's really important for us to recognize when we get into that conditioned state of having to show up for everybody else but ourselves, because that's a very, very normal conditioned thing that we all experience. And so the more that we're able to kind of take a step back and go, okay, this leery of disappointing others, where does that come from? Right? Because that's not something that is, I mean, obviously we want to be kind, we want to be loving, we want to be able to show up for people. But in a state where we're not caught up in all of that conditioning, we recognize that we need to take care of ourselves in order to truly be that. And in order to truly show up for someone else and not disappoint. And so just notice that when that comes up, because this is that piece where we were talking about authority and really honoring our strategy and authority so that we can make aligned decisions, not ones that the conditioned mind are trying to make us do. Okay, so I didn't want to leave that.
No, and I'm glad you did, and Rain said the same thing. I'm aware of it. It's hard to change it, and I'm not hearing you have to change it. I'm hearing you have to understand it. It also, and again, for entertainment purposes only, it also helps you set the boundaries that you need to be your most authentic self. And it also gives you the ability to go, noticing is a big thing. When this comes up, when I notice it, what can I do to support myself in that noticing, and then decondition myself a bit?
Definitely.
And
Jules, yeah, being a parent, sometimes I feel guilty doing that. I hear you. I, though, also know, and I've done this before, and you can even ask my kids, I put myself in timeout. And I've done it multiple times where I said, okay, mommy's in timeout. Mommy's not going to get talked to. You're not going to ask any questions. Mommy's not allowed to communicate for the next 5 minutes. Mommy's in timeout.
Well, and I do think it's one of those things is that children learn a lot from the adults around them. So if the adults know they need a timeout and they say, I'm taking a timeout, then the kids know that. They go, oh, I can do that. And that's okay. So I think, and by the way, it's never too late to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
Never. I mean, at all. I mean, here. Never too late to learn this stuff. Okay? So, All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I know you have got a lot of things to do with your time. I appreciate you spending some time with us. And stay tuned, because we're going to schedule at least one more of these, probably two. And then we need to do profiles.
Yeah.
So if people are wanting that. So, all right. Everyone, thank you so very much. It is wonderful to see you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Absolute pleasure, as always. I love being here with you and with everybody. So
It's
thanks
great.
for having me.
Best chatters. Bye.